Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome back to the Fanny Pack Wrestling Podcast. I am still PD Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me, as always, is my cohort. We're back together again, reunited, and it feels so good. David Jeffrey Majors, aka DJM. How you doing, DJM?
Buenos nachos and top of the pie charts, everybody. The Fanny Pack Wrestling Podcast is flying at full force. The band, as they said back in 2000, is back together. But you know what, PD? Last season of Fanny Pack, I got to call you out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, you picked a lot of the shows last season, and they were good. They were okay.
Yes.
But I think it's time for me to jump in and drive the good ship Fanny Pack for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because I, being the original indie wrestling uber nerd on this show, I like to take this podcast and use it as a venue, if you will, to introduce people into why I love all awesome things indie. How all of these things started, the clever chants, how nowadays people are chanting "This is awesome" in large crowds in loud arenas. So, earlier in the year, I threw across to PD. I said, hey, why don't I pick out some of the very best that indie wrestling has to offer, and we invite some guests on and let them see what's really, really so great about the indies. Mm-hmm. And the awesome series was born.
Yes.
And we're starting with two fantabulous guests of the highest order. Petey, please introduce them.
Yes. First of all, we have a streamer extraordinaire, one of my best friends, one of the people that I adore, one of the coolest people on the internet, whose beard is engaged to my beard. To be married, and I'm excited for that. We have none other than the one half of Drunk Kids Gaming, the one, the only, Brian Curley. He has no middle name. I don't know why I paused for one, but here he is, Brian Curley, aka Curley. How you doing, Curley?
Hello, Mr. Rave Master Petey. Thanks for having me on your show. And DJM, also. Lovely man. Nice. I have a middle name. What the hell?
Well, I don't know it. It's okay. Brian Drunk Kids Gaming Curley.
I think apparently it's a thing, Curley, that only me and our other guest can only be introduced by their full name. I don't even know how it started with me. I'm not ripping off our second guest. It just started this way. But PD, introduce our second guest.
Our second guest is my fellow South Floridian, now West Coast, I guess native, or at least living in the West Coast. None other than the half of Night Attack, half of the team that created the NSFW show and now mans the ship over at Night Attack. None other than Justin Robert Young. How you doing, Justin?
I am so excited to be back on this show, not only because we got to watch this amazing PWG show, not to spoil it, but also, I the last time I was on this show, man, I was Gandalf the Grey. You know, I knew a little bit about the wrestling back from, my childhood. But then I'll tell you what, in between then and now, I met a Balrog by the name of the WWE Network, and I am down the rabbit hole, my friends. Pay-per-view watching. Squared circle on Reddit posting. It is getting guggly for me.
It's back in your system, isn't it? Just when you think you're out for good, it just pulls you right back in.
Gene! It is great.
Yes,
that's good, because I came into this with a request from Petey, and I'm like, I'm going to go through my history of wrestling that I've watched in my life. I started 4 hours ago for my first wrestling match ever watched.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie. The first 10 minutes, I'm like, what am I going to do on this show with Petey? I don't know what the hell I'm watching. By the end of the 2 hours of that video, I was like, this is awesome.
But let's get into what we're talking about today. DJM, go ahead and introduce the promotion. I think we've talked about promotion we talked about extensively before, but specifically the event we're talking about today.
Right. Today we are talking about the 2011 show Mystery Vortex from the Southern California promotion Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, aka PWG, run by Excalibur, director of food and beverage, and the indie wrestling legend known only as Super Dragon. This show took place in 2011. It's called Mystery Vortex, and again, I picked it out personally because, in my opinion, it's pretty damn off the charts. And for the last maybe 4 or 5 years, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla has been nothing but awesomeness, just absolute crazily awesome wrestling, and somehow they're still going as strong as ever, despite half of their roster signing developmental contracts in the last 3 years. So
Here, DJM, give me some backstory on, because it seems like, and again, I am just kind of reintroducing myself into the wrestling sphere as a whole, that PWG and Ring of Honor seem to kind of cross-pollinate and share a lot of talent.
most definitely. There's definitely a lot of, I wouldn't go so far as to say a working relationship, because indie guys work where they want to, by and large, unless
they're independent contractors, and
unless they sign exclusive contracts.
Yeah.
But you will see, especially in like the late 2000s, from 2009 and onwards, there will be a lot of PWG and ROH crossover. Though they never actually work with one another officially, you'll see guys like Adam Cole, Kevin Steen, Sami Callihan, El Generico, Eddie Edwards, Roderick Strong. You'll see a lot of these guys working both shows. Each promotion has their uniqueness to them that makes them who they are, and that's a testament to a lot of the guys on the card, where in Ring of Honor, they're one way, and in PWG, they can be completely different. If you ever see the differences between Davey Richards in PWG and Davey Richards in Ring of Honor, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But to answer your question, there's a lot of cross-pollination, but nothing officially set in stone.
But it would seem that, considering where we live now in an era where Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, and Samoa Joe are the top echelon of the major promotions, as you would deem them, although TNA may or may not exist in 5 minutes, who knows, that this is the feeding ground in a way. It seems very intense in a way that almost like ECW was back in the late 90s, where it was like these guys are ready within 6 months. They could be in a title picture in that kind of mix in WWE, for example.
Yes. Funny you bring up ECW, because ECW, Paul Heyman's brainchild, his personal assistant was Gabe Sapolsky, who was the original booker for Ring of Honor. So all of this really spawned from what ECW had in mind for pro wrestling at the time, in that it wasn't meant to be in the mainstream. It was supposed to push wrestling to its boundaries. And the mainstream companies saw the Ring of Honors, the PWGs, as the place to find the upcoming talent. And essentially sign them to their developmental contract, get them ready for television, and then once they were there, let things take care of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting thing about the show, I think it was more recent than 2011, but I'm not sure. But yeah, interesting thing about the show and our history with PWG. Back, I think our first season, our first show where we covered a PWG event, I was gearing up. I had bought a couple. I think I bought one event from highspots.com, and it was this one, and it was almost going to be the show that we covered for of PWG before I decided to go instead for DDT4. I believe that was the show we ended up covering. Just because I thought, okay, this tag team tournament that's unique to PWG, that might be more unique to PWG than this event. which I guess, in my defense, though this show was great from top to bottom, the other event did have Roderick Strong chopping Adam Cole in the dick. So you kind of
there's definitely a big high spot for a cock punch in this.
Yes. Yes.
Well, then on that note, P, let's just jump right in. Per tradition with PWG, the opening match on the show is usually a tag team match. And this was no different, in which we saw Eddie Edwards and Roderick Strong, also known as the Dojo Bros, taking on who else? Slick Nick and Action Matt, the Young Bucks.
Yes, the Young Bucks, the embodiment of everything cynical wrestling fans hate about indie wrestling. They love the flippy flops and the super kicks.
The sheer amount of choreograph that I saw in that first match was insane. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Conversation about the Young Bucks real quick, because again, reintroducing myself to the Matrix here. But
yes, they take a lot from the Hardys. Yes.
The Hardys, D-Generation X, but I mean, like, that influence is obviously there. They've got charisma off the charts. They seem like a team that you would expect to have had a cup of coffee in the at this point, and in following, I guess they have had tryouts. Personality issues might have gotten in the way, but like they are indie wrestling. They are very much living embodiment, metaphor of not only indie wrestling, but this era of it where it is highly acrobatic. It's like you took that element of ECW, the super high spot, crazy, how can they do this element, and completely eliminated kind of the Sandman. You cut the Sandman out of ECW. That is very much this modern sort of era. And the Young Bucks, every bit of that.
Yeah, and they're every bit of that, and they're every bit of it. Every bit.
Just to answer that one thing quickly, Justin. Okay. Just to answer that for you. They're making plenty of money for New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. Yes. That's why they're not there yet.
Gotcha.
Yes, and also they're the embodiment of all that, and I think the best part, they are also the perfect send-up of all that. Like, they definitely do a lot to make fun of kind of everything that is kind of they're thought of. Like, specifically the greatest move of all time, the handspring backflip backrake. Where it's the handspring,
incredible.
Tilt-a-whirl handspring backrake. Which is like, let me do all these flips, and then I'm just going to stand here and do a backrake. And that's
but let's not totally forget about the Dojo Bros either. We have Ring of Honor.
All right, Petey, how's it going?
I'm back. And the internet is stupid. Yeah.
I'm worried about your show.
Yeah. I understand. All right. Okay. But DJM, you were talking last.
Yes, I was talking about Roderick Strong, Ring of Honor original, the guy that made chops what they are today in the 2000s. Also known as the Messiah of the Backbreaker, and Eddie Edwards, in my opinion, one of those guys who I really don't understand why he hasn't been signed by now, taking on the Young Bucks. And this was what I like to call an indie-tastic opening match. This is the trademark signature pro wrestling guerrilla opening tag team match that gets the kids hype, as they say, and I enjoyed it thoroughly.
So you're looking at gigantic athleticism, really highly kinetic, kind of high spots of legs and arms flipping all over the place. You're out playing big leagues.
This is the exact way, in my opinion, to open a show. I always believe that the opening match on the card can be just as important as the main event. And I think PWG has figured that out to be the catalyst for the show. And they always find a way to have a match like this where you can see the fans around the crowd absolutely adrenalized from this match, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do.
Coming from the outside as a completely new person to it, I opened this video with the intent to watch it while working on shit, and it was like the human skin equivalent of shooting off a shit ton of fireworks. I was like, oh well, okay, I'm gonna watch this for a bit. And I got really into it.
That really is modern pro wrestling at its best, right? Is that at the end of the day, even if you are a casual observer, the shit that will happen within 5 minutes is something that you've never seen like human beings physically do.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I going into it, I knew what wrestling is and everything, and I've seen stuff, but I started being concerned. I was like, oh, they're going to hit the audience? I mean, how are they making these without
There's
killing
a
each other?
child in the audience?
As someone who has been in those crowds, you learn when to move.
Yeah, no, and because I was like, just to throw it out there, man. I was absolutely loving. I mean, one of the things that sold me on the whole thing was like there's a couple times when they zoomed in some of the kids' faces that are just in the audience, and just you have the adults enjoying it and everything, but those kids are fucking in it, and their minds are blown watching these men throw each other around the ring.
Which is wild. And I have to ask, what was yours, and I guess Justin's as well, what was your first impression of kind of the personality of PWG? I think that's another big important part about the company.
Of the company? The personality of the company?
Yeah, just the personality of the show, the commentators, just the environment and the personality of the fans.
Just Pro Wrestling Guerrilla as a whole.
Yeah, see, like, so I was a little concerned at first. The first match that was going on, I don't know if it's the same commenters for the whole thing, but they seemed to be having their own conversation entirely during the whole match. And I was like, what are these guys even doing? Like the later in the show, they were like, I don't know if they switched to a guy or something that was doing it differently because I couldn't tell their voices, but they were starting to describe like all the moves, all the kicks, all the throws and stuff. And I was actually enjoying that part of it because I was like, oh, I can actually, I can understand what's going on, because to me it's a bunch of flopping around and but it was really cool. I mean, I enjoyed. I mean, they get everyone hyped and everything, and they're excited about it. It's the same thing I get from the other stuff that I watch. I'm not a big sports guy technically, but I enjoy the spectacle of sports, and it helps to have for a casual viewer to have someone be your maestro in regards to like the discussion of it, the commentating on it and stuff. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm watching all the time, kind of thing. Yeah. Don't know when I should be hyped.
And that is something that is both a positive and a negative with indie wrestling, is that the commentary oftentimes can be usually on point, but then when it does deviate, it's very, very inside.
Well, so you picked this show because you knew it was a good one, right? I didn't know I was watching like a hand-picked show episode. I thought it was just a weekly thing at first. But yeah, no, I mean, so if they're not all like this, it makes sense, because I was expecting, indie circuit, it's going to be some, not so enthused people or some, technically bad actors or whatever. But this was fantastic.
Justin, I know you were especially interested in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Overall, what did you think of just the overall package and presentation of what you saw from PWG?
First impressions, yeah.
Real quick for Curley, just and for my own edification, so for new people coming into it, the difference between PWG and let's say something like WWE is that it's not, I mean, certainly television is not there, but it is not a weekly source of entertainment for the fans, right? This is something more like monthly or
monthly or so.
Yeah. So it's like every show you're getting every belt that they have in the
okay,
more or less
defended, and it's not like these stories have a big build or anything like they would in WWE, and then eventually they come to like the big pay-per-view where everybody gets their just desserts. Sure. All right, so about PWG, I've been watching a lot of wrestling lately, and a lot of old wrestling, like older WWEs, ECWs, and a lot of the WWE Network will have just random house shows that they'll just put on as like their old school series, which I came to one yesterday in a match against Greg the Hammer Valentine and SD Jones, Special Delivery Jones, commentators, and I couldn't place who they were. Made sure to mention
the proto Xavier Woods, SD Jones.
Yes, made sure to mention, number one, that there were a lot of Orientals in the crowd. And number 2, Special Delivery Jones loves dancing. Oh man, you should see him dance. Now, meanwhile, Special Delivery Jones, for those you don't know, is black. No dancing in his gimmick. It's not like he comes to the ring dancing. It's not like he dances in the ring in between stuff. It's just that he's a black guy, and boy, howdy, does he love shucking and jiving.
See, this is why I say to everyone out there in the internet, I don't completely blame Alberto Del Rio if what happened really happened. I don't blame him at all.
No.
Because I know for a fact there have been a couple of times I've wanted to slap the shit out of somebody in WWE for some of the stuff they've pulled.
And we can do an entire...
I ain't mad at him at all. Not at all.
We can do an entire podcast about race in wrestling in general, because believe you me, it's not a WWE specific problem.
It's just something we've covered an event where like several faces had adorned Confederate flags. As good guy.
Petey.
I'm
gonna stay calm.
And if you look at, it's very interesting to look at PWG and something like NXT, which is currently on the WWE Network. It is effectively WWE's minor leagues, and will, once Kevin Steen joins their ranks, have 2 of the headliners from this show amongst them. That's booked by the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, if you will, and it's amazing to see what the difference is in terms of the focus of story. PWG, it's effectively like everybody in the ring is an internet smark, except these guys actually do it, and the people in the crowd just love it. The personalities of everybody are effectively the same. It's not to say that their natural charisma doesn't shine through and it's not compelling. It very much is. But the reason why you care about it is because of what they do in the ring. And it's almost predicated by this idea of, hey, I've been on YouTube watching all these, all these New Japan shows, all these Mexican shows for years too. I know the choreography of Savage Steamboat by heart as well. Now look at what I do, almost in the way that you would come to a certain, like a jazz connoisseurs would come to a jazz club to see a certain artist perform, because they all have a certain level of base knowledge. That was what I got from PWG, and that kind of seems to be where its focus is, compared to something like NXT, where it's very much geared toward, hey, here's some big personalities and storylines that you can latch on to, and then come back week after week to see the story grow, even if the in-ring talent isn't nearly at the level that something like PWG is.
Yeah, and that's speaking of a couple of guys you'll see on NXT. We have the next match, don't we?
Going from hyper athleticism to pure, raw, unadulterated violence.
Yes.
Between Sami Callihan, who some of you out there might know as Solomon Crow, to the happiest deathmatch wrestler in history, Mr. Drake Younger.
Yeah,
These two gentlemen have had a series of matches in PWG over time that have gotten increasingly more violent. And, well, yeah, this happened too.
Yes, this happened too. A guy you'll see wrestling in NXT versus a guy you'll probably see calling his match. I mean, reffing his match, I believe, over in NXT. A couple of interesting talents. A couple of wild, crazy go nuts guys. And I'll throw it to Curley. What was your impression of this as athleticism turned to brutality? What was your reaction to the changeover?
Well, for me, watching it, it went from the firework bodies to just pounding, and
Yes.
I think that's where they got a lot more. I mean, they got a lot more out of the ring and a lot more physical with each other, and that's where I started being concerned. I'm like, because I don't know, I coming into this, I don't know how much is discussed between the players, how much like kind of stuff. So it's the choreography and everything, but it just seems like it's almost impossible some of the ways that they don't get hurt in their stage show kind of thing.
Well,
It's improvised.
At some point, you're like, wait a minute, wrestling's fake, right? Like,
yeah. You're
that's the magic, gentlemen. That's the
it's a
magic.
stage show at that point, because you're really concerned for these guys. After a couple hits, you're like, all right, that one I can see how he worked that one out. That one, like, oh damn, no.
Like,
You
have
kick
fun.
it. Definitely got kicked in the head there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
Like,
no, they were
uh,
split the face. Yeah.
both of these gentlemen are products of Combat Zone Wrestling. Whereas Ring of Honor and PWG went in one direction from ECW of being the hyper-athletic wrestling, CZW, Combat Zone Wrestling, went in the other direction and catered the term ultra-violence.
Where like Justin said, you take that part of ECW, get rid of Sandman. CCW
This is
decided,
all
let's take
Sandman.
ECW and got rid of everything but Sandman and Balls Mahoney and
Sandman on a bender, on a serious bender.
There are two kind of canonical performers from ECW, being this very, very influential promotion, especially as it resulted to the indies. You had the Rob Van Dams of the world, somebody who was hyper athletic, was leaping across the ring, showed a kind of for a stocky guy a sort of range of motion that had therefore really been unseen, and same with Sabu. And then you had somebody like Sandman, who was effectively like a Philadelphia schlub, just a guy with a beer gut that would just do these incredibly bloody matches. At some point, was literally crucified like Jesus on the side of the ring with a crown of barbed wire, leading about as bloody as the actual crucifixion.
with Kurt Angle in the audience.
Kurt Angle in the
10 years later, that was Drake Younger.
Yeah. So that EZW, which is in West Virginia, right?
No, they're based out of Philly as well.
Are they? Okay.
Or Voorhees, Pennsylvania specifically, and the Flyers skate zone most of the time.
They are everything that PWG kind of PWG was infected with the Rob Van Dam seed. They were infected with the Sandman seed.
Yes, exactly. Like many a rat was back in the day.
It does have its place because I was watching a WrestleMania rewind of the triangle ladder match at WrestleMania 2000 with the Dudleys, the Hardys, and Edge and Christian, and Edge made mention of having the Dudleys be part of that feud, took it from two athletic tag teams that were very interesting to the tornado in a trailer park kind of brutality. And that's what I sort of felt watching this match, is that you go from the Young Bucks, which are, like you said, everything that indie wrestling kind of gets shit for, and then you go to something that is like, you have a Curley watches it and it's like, wait, what the? These guys are actually like murdering each other.
They're bleeding. They're bleeding. I don't want to.
Drake Younger bleeds from headbutting Sammy Callahan, theoretically. Not even from
real?
a weapon.
I mean, right?
It was real blood. I can tell you that.
Right. Yeah, that was like.
That's the magic of pro wrestling, gentlemen.
I was like, all right. I was like, no, he's got like a blood pack. No, that's blood. That's still bleeding. Okay.
PD, blood packs.
I remember thinking
like the blood you see in WWE today, now that they've banned blading, which
it's the accidental blood.
Yeah, it's so I mean, I guess
excuse me, explain blading. That sounds terrible.
Oh, yeah, it's the act of a wrestler surreptitiously kind of taking a kind of a razor blade at a moment where nobody was noticing, or if have bad video production, everybody watching on television will be noticing. Is you take a blade and you make a nice little incision on your forehead after taking some sort of hit in order to induce a kind of a blood coming out.
Okay, so it's
also,
you're doing it to yourself though, not
as an aside.
You're not cutting each other.
If everyone will pardon me using an old school wrestling term, brother,
Like
there's also called getting busted open the hard way, or getting busted open hard way, where it just happens. That does happen too.
Yeah.
And that's what you see in WWE now, because they've banned people blading. So if
someone gets busted open in WWE, it's absolutely legit shoot, brother. 100%.
Definitely.
That's hardcore. I'm impressed.
But yeah, the brutality of these two.
Curly, do you have your phone next to you, or do you have can you go on and look up a web page right now?
I'm on a computer. Yes, sir, I can.
Do me a favor. I just want your reaction. Just Google Dusty Rhodes forehead.
Ooh.
Oh
Dusty.
no.
Dusty
No.
Rhodes, as in RHODES.
Justin,
forehead.
you are evil. You
Now-
are an evil man, Justin Robert
Dusty
Young.
Rhodes references. He's a legend of wrestling, if you will. He has one of the legendary foreheads
One of
that
the
have
greatest
been
of all time. And one of
lifetime.
the ugliest foreheads you ever see, baby.
Like him and Kamala
New Jack.
and Abdullah
New
the
Jack.
Butcher.
There's a lot of things going on. Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a whole section dedicated to scars.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah,
Damn.
just the brutality. And then
That's not natural. Duh.
You know,
yes.
he's been on hard times.
You have a city for each one of those. One of those is Greensboro, North Carolina for Starrcade.
No,
got-
I mean that's looking at one of those like mirage paintings.
And you know, once
Trying-
the
you're trying to
sailboat.
be like,
And you
you're like
there's
I
that
see a
one-
sailboat in there. You got to
I
cross
see a
your eyes.
schooner.
You'll see it. I swear. Just keep looking. Oh,
The schooner.
Terrible.
So yeah, and it's just that fantastic brutality that you see, and I think honed. It's funny because this match versus the same match several years prior, completely different match. Like the same competitors and everything, just from the guys leaving CZW. Ever since they have both kind of not necessarily left, but at least actually went outside of CZW, they actually got better. And if you saw the same match several years ago, you'd be like, God. Stop it,
And
you're idiots.
now, several years after this, I'm honestly just happy that neither one of them has to do any of that anymore.
Yes, that's true.
know.
Of course,
They're going to be trading wrist locks with the vaudevillains, you know, and,
Yes.
and they deserve it.
I love the vaudevillains.
yes, and they'll make lots and lots of money.
By the way, I want to go see an NXT house show.
You
Yes.
should.
I did.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes.
Was
Yes.
Bailey there?
Bailey was. Bailey did the job for Charlotte.
Oh.
It was great. Bailey, I'll tell you what, she's got a great future behind her. There's ass on
Yes.
that lady.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, going from the brutality back to the athleticism and back to a little bit of the fun. I think something that maybe plays a little more back to Curly's alley, with the tag team match, with the Super Smash Brothers, Player Uno and Player Dos /
Sure.
Stupefied, depending on where he's wrestling, taking on the Rock Ness Monster, who originally were kind of used to be the Super Smash Brothers of PWG before they actually made their way over there.
So
Johnny
I hate to
Goodtime
be,
and Johnny
correct me if
Newman.
I'm wrong though, because I don't know the names too well. But this is the one where there was beard shavings blew into another man's face, right?
I'm going to say yes. Did
Oh,
you
that was-
correct me?
The end spot was the dastardly Rock Ness Monster with beard, doing the old sand in the eyes
Yeah.
with his own beard and it going. Thankfully, the good guys powered through. They did not succumb to such
Yeah.
a dastardly team, and they were able to power out the win.
Almost got him.
And
Almost got
this
him.
is one of those things in indie wrestling that I really, really appreciate. That not only was this match super athletic, but there were also plenty of shenanigans as well.
I mean, that's
Yes.
commitment to a bit if I've ever seen one.
It
You're
shows that-
cutting your beard off and for a one-off
It
joke.
shows that you can commit to your character and be entertaining while still putting on an extremely athletic match. And to me, that is the essence of pro wrestling right there.
Mhm.
And I really think that a lot of times nobody else does that better than PWG or at a higher level than PWG. And I think this is one of those matches that really showed it, where the athleticism was top notch and the gimmickry, as it were, was top notch as well.
But it kind of goes into that Smark kind of energy, right? Like the fact that they know their crowd, they know that.
And the most important thing in wrestling in front of it is knowing the crowd, knowing your audience, and knowing how to get that reaction. Period.
You're not just going, especially if you only wrestle once a month, right? Like, you know, you're not going to get away with a distraction finish or something like that. Like you will get booed out of the American Legion Hall or wherever they are.
The Reseda Complex.
If you do something hack and stupid that doesn't have at least an emotionally satisfying, if not entertaining finale, and that was a great way to kind of end it. And that's to your point, Curly. I forget if this was on or off the recording, but you were asking how do you get these guys who are essentially independent contractors on the same page to understand? Yeah. Well, hey, you lose this, you win this, and that's kind of what you saw in this is that everybody left looking good. Some people won, some people didn't. Sure. But at some point, everybody had a moment in which they could have won. Yeah. You know, like
all of these guys have I can imagine just a very large personal fan followers that follow them to whatever they're doing with their characters. And
more localized for Rockness Monster, but definitely for Super Smash Brothers. They're all over the indies. Not in Chikara anymore, which makes me sad, but
that's how you get big though, right? You're running it's weird. It's weird to think of when you take it in terms of and this is again me coming out from an outsider's standpoint, but looking at this wrestling match as I look at comparing it to all other industries and stuff, either trying to live stream or doing magic or what have you, you have the same hardships of trying to build your own personal fan following and your own show and getting your own shtick right, but at the same time of dealing with everyone else trying to do that same thing, and then also you having to work together with tens or dozens of other people in a show just to make a thing happen. That's gonna be hard to do for these people to craft the narrative.
Your brand, and that's why I think there's actually a more intricate form of building your brand now in the world of indie wrestling, because like Player Uno is not just a tag team wrestler and indie wrestler. He also does Let's Plays on YouTube, like as Player Uno with his mask on. Like he also has a show.
Where so he's straight up legit. Nah,
like
awesome.
He has a show called Foreplay. I want to say, where he and 3 other guys, usually it's kind of rotating cast, all play a kind of a 4-player
just for me, Petey, I have to ask. And
they actually play against each other for a belt that they hand off back to each other.
As the Super Smash Brothers are from Montreal, are they in French or English with these streams? Because I might check them
English, all English. Okay. Even Stu's has Stu's Kitchen with Pasquale. The Italian chef, which is hilarious and amazing.
So you're saying Stupefied really has finally worked on his English?
Yeah, there's an accent, but yeah.
Okay, all right.
I'm really excited that Curly identified the 3 pillars of show business: indie wrestling and magic.
That's all there is. Everything else.
iTricks.com, ladies and gentlemen. iTricks.com. Head on over to iTricks.com.
Exactly. All I need to do is the ring, and I got all 3.
Yes, exactly.
No other entertainment exists.
Yeah, and there's some fantastic guys, and everyone check out the.
Oh, I'm following him right now. I just looked him up.
Slam. Yeah, he's a cool guy. He does a lot of fun games. He does a lot of fun indie games. Like he does a big focus on doing Let's Plays of indie games and stuff like that. So.
His location is set as the Mushroom Kingdom, Canada. That's cute.
Yes, exactly. That's awesome. But yeah, some fantastic guys, and another pair of
to the next one.
Yes.
This one did have this match in particular was probably the most inside baseball meta for the diehards only match on the show, in which we saw Scorpio Sky, PWG original, taking on the one, the only, Joey Ryan. Just to provide a little bit of context for this show.
Sultan of Sleaze.
The Sultan of Sleaze, the Hollywood submission machine, Joey Ryan, who I especially want to talk about for a second. This was Joey Ryan's last match with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla for a while, as he had signed a contract with TNA in 2012. So this was kind of his send-off with his old tag team partner, running buddy in a faction known as the Dynasty, Scorpio Sky. So there were a lot of callbacks, a lot of silliness from their history, and for me it was pretty enjoyable, only because I got the history. Mm-hmm. But just throwing all of that aside, I want to talk about Joey Ryan just for a minute, and I want to ask Justin. I'm dying to know because for whatever reason, I think if there is one person in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla that might catch your attention, if there's one person, if there's one personality that would catch your eye before all others, it would be Joey Ryan. Justin, tell me, what did you think of the Hollywood submission machine, the technical wizard, Joey Ryan?
I mean, I almost wish, and this is kind of the element that I wish we would have gotten more of, that, I kind of wish I would have gotten more of his personality, because I assume that that's a lot of why, you would say, like, oh, well, Justin would really enjoy this. He was incredibly competent in the ring. It was a super fun match. Obviously, it was a very emotional match for not only himself, but everybody there, since he was such an influential, to listen to the announcers kind of tell the story, was an influential part of the creation of PWG. Not to mention, it's always the bittersweet. It is kind of the essential fabric of a successful indie promotion that you have these farewell matches to your top talent. That everybody's happy they are going to a bigger, better place. And yet you can't help but feel sad that they are no longer going to be wrestling for this particular promotion. So, I thought it was great. In terms of, like, did I leave saying that this guy was my favorite wrestler? No, not necessarily, but I don't know if this was the match for that. I think, like you said, this was the match for people who already knew and loved him, as opposed to, Johnny-come-lately assholes like me.
I will say, in all honesty, if you are more curious about PWG and look to dive into it more, and of course, because TNA is what it is, Joey Ryan eventually does come back, and he pretty much picks up where he leaves off, and just keeps rolling with it. So if you do decide to look more into PWG, I know you're in California now, I would really like to know what you think of Joey Ryan, because I feel like as far as pro wrestling characters go, there is just what I know about Joey Ryan. There is something that says to me, I really think Justin's going to be into him.
He is the master of the boobplex, just so you know. He is one to, every once in a while when he wrestles women, because there is a lot of intergender wrestling, he has a move where it's a German suplex where, to prepare, he grabs tight hold on the breasts of his opponent and German suplexes them. It is one of the most fascinating things, is the boobplex. And I think that's probably part of what he's talking about, part of his character, if you will. Curley, did you have kind of any kind of impression on this match, real quick?
Yeah, probably completely different than your guys's, because I have no idea who this guy is or any of his history. But this is where I started. I mean, you can kind of tell my opinion of this entire experience from the way I've been talking about it. But this is kind of where I formulated it. I watched this match, and it was just like a normal match that I had been watching. But at the end of it, they did the whole. He gave him a chance to monologue and talk to the whole crowd and everyone, and it kind of broke the fourth wall with the whole wrestling thing. And he was just talking about how much he's appreciated the experience and everything. And that's where I really kind of latched on to the whole, like, this indie wrestling thing is this cool art form that I really want to know more about, because I love this. I love actors and performers and people doing their creative shtick, and this was beautiful. I mean, him getting up there, and the fans are being their fans, and they're yelling and screaming and stuff. But he's thanking Scorpio guy. He's thanking sorry, I don't know everyone's names, but he's thanking him, and then even the one guy, one of the announcer guys come up, and he's just like, I think he's the guy who runs the thing with the mask or whatever.
Excalibur, yes.
Excalibur.
And so he came up, and he was just gave him his send off and everything, and it was beautiful. It's beautiful to see that creative people wishing someone onward to bigger and better pastures and whatnot. And this is where I started to really kind of, like, for me, I mean, this is me. I'm a big nerd about people doing, whatever it is that they find creative and fun as an outlet, and getting to see a little bit. For me, this is my first behind the scenes, seeing what these people are really like, kind of thing, and how they actually interact with each other outside of just the show that I was watching. And I really, really enjoyed that little aspect that they gave to it, that they gave him a send off and everything.
I mean,
that was me.
Indie wrestling has to be. It inhibits this very, very rare and extreme element of live theater if you are an actor and you live in Los Angeles and you want to make it to the big time, you want to be in Guardians of the Galaxy 4, and you want to have that opportunity, the big people who call the big shots to say you're the one. You learn your lines for a regional promotion, for some play, you do it, and whether or not 5 people show up or 50, you have to go perform. This is that, except nobody thinks you're legitimate, the art form, by and large. And whether 5 people or 50 people show up, you still have to put yourself in extreme pain. You have
Although I will make another comparison with theater, because I'm going to keep going with that analogy, because whether it's five people there or 50 people there, one of those people might be somebody that works for Saturday Night Live, and then they see you, and then it's like, hey, that guy. And that can happen in indie wrestling too, whether it's a tryout match or somebody that works for one of the big companies being backstage. Somebody might see one of those talents and say, hey, this guy, we'll see what you're doing in about 6 months, and then we'll talk. Because that possibility is always there. It didn't used to be. We live in a very interesting time in the wrestling world where WWE has turned a very close eye to the indies. Yeah. And it was not like that for a very long time.
It also seems like, especially now that they have this NXT brand, that they're looking to almost build like another promotion, like they've tried to do. It has kind of been the dream of Major League Wrestling for 20 years now, but as what WCW wanted to do with the NWO, that's what the WWE tried to do with the brand split between Raw and SmackDown. But it looks like their best chance might be with NXT as a straight, kind of minor league promotion that also features guys like Sami Zayn and Kenta and Fergal Devitt. Bringing.
Further to the point.
Yes. I totally fangirled.
Yes. To the point. In order to get to Guardians of the Galaxy, you got to go through the OC. That's for sure.
You don't go through. No, you have to go through the Orange County Occidental College performance of the Taming of the Shrew parody that your friend wrote.
Well, just to jump on that. I mean, that's a really interesting point, though, being that as a whole, I mean, the genre that you've picked as your creative outlet is not considered great by the mass public.
It's the child of carnies and con men.
It's not Shakespearean theater. It's got no legitimacy to it in the mainstream world, technically, right? But you're going out there, and the only way you're ever going to make it is to. I mean, you're putting yourself personally out there so hard acting-wise for this wrestling stuff. You're out there in a Speedo usually for some of these guys.
The way I have grown to compare it is that I equate pro wrestling with an extremely intense form of Cirque du Soleil.
And I don't understand how you'd get over that stage fright, though, for going out there and wrestling, though. I mean, because as you said, there could be 5 or 50 people out there, and you've got to go out there and you've got to act.
Honestly, Curley, I've spoken with wrestlers on numerous occasions. It's no different from live theater. It's that immediate reaction from the crowd. Whether you get them to cheer for you or you get them to boo for you, and you elicit that emotion that you want from them, or you're able to get them emotionally invested in that story you want to tell. That is magic.
Are there
that is why they do it.
Is there beyond just being indie wrestling, but like where's the open night mic like wrestling, like where there's like the guy who's like
those
his first
are
time
camps and tryouts.
You go to wrestling school. That would be the pre-show matches on shows.
Oh, really?
Like these. That would be the pre-show matches.
But yeah,
you actually have to go to the shows for.
Yeah, going to the next
where you're just trying to figure out if wrestling's your thing, and you want to just try it out, and you're.
Well, I think that's train first. You're going to be in training for a while.
You got to go to school. If you're dumb, you do backyard wrestling. But if you're smart, you go to backyard.
Backyard wrestling's kind of died out, though. It's kind of died out. It's really died out.
I think
because we're in a way bigger YouTube world now, where it's
World Star.
Exactly.
Now you do unregistered fight club in Carol City or something. That's the thing now.
That is crazy. I would expect there to be more backyard wrestling. That is maybe the upset of our modern that in a world of ubiquitous recording and ubiquitous digital publishing, that there has been less backyard wrestling than there was in the 90s when people were.
Where's the YouTube Challenger Championship belts? Like we need someone needs to organize this stuff.
If I started a promotion, I would do a web TV championship.
I mean, come on. I mean,
is the belt.
How much backyard wrestling is there at the Rave household, Petey? Come on.
Not anymore.
Oh.
None. There's nobody to wrestle.
Like I said, it's kind of died out. It has kind of died out.
But yeah, moving on to kind of again, people that can elicit that crazy reaction with some of their moves. The following match, a kind of a 4-way match between a guy that has been around forever, B-Boy, Brian Cage, the incredibly handsome and lovely Willie Mack, and T.J. Perkins. A bunch of disparate talent, a bunch of different personalities completely. You got new guys, you got old guys.
I will just say right now, make sure you remember Willie Mack. I'm just saying.
Okay, which one was the gigantic black guy?
That's Willie Mack.
Willie Mack. I'm shocked. He fits so perfectly in the Vince McMahon
Justin
monster.
Justin. He is what I like to call on the Kevin Steen watch right now. Any day now. Any day.
I mean, like, when you get to that level of athleticism for a big guy, only so many of you. There's only so many gigantic guys like that can also take gigantic bumps, that can also be that athletic. And it's like, even though WWE has trended more toward, look at, like, Umaga was somebody who was highly athletic. Rusev is somebody that can basically do Young Buck spots at, like, this gigantic kind of weight and size. He seems very much to fit in that modern monster heel, super athletic kind of
and
mind.
Justin, early on, I was making Willie Mack comparisons to a young Samoa Joe. That's who he reminded me of when Samoa Joe in like 2002, 2003 was just on another planet compared to everybody else. And when it comes to Willie Mack and Vince McMahon, just stay tuned. Yeah,
You're saying stay tuned as in, because this was in 2011, you said? Or are you saying stay tuned like we already should know that something's happening?
I'm saying that he will probably be on NXT sometime before 2014 is over.
That's fascinating. But yeah, you had a bunch of personality, including I think the last remaining member of the Pleather Shorts posse.
What was that, Justin?
B-Boy. Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
I was just gonna say, like, do you know Willie Mack? Like, are you like friends with him? Like, are you like?
Hey, not all black people know each other.
DJM is Willie Mack. You know.
I don't know. I don't think he exudes that much.
I am the super internet smark on this show. It's my job to.
He's on all the forums and stuff.
I keep my ears open and my eyes halfway shut. So I keep an eye on things. And
no, he was great. This match to me really revolved around his spots. You had a lot of really great stuff. But I mean, Curley, as somebody just coming in new, this would be what I would say. Like there's the brutality, and then there's like I didn't know that people that big could be that athletic.
Yeah, that's where you started seeing
also Brian Cage. I feel like with any PWG show, Brian Cage needs to be mentioned.
Well, some of the lifting of each other and some of the just the jumping out. I mean, there was a lot of out of the ring stuff with this guy. I was terribly impressed at this point. Like,
there was a moment where T.J. Perkins dives towards Brian Cage, and Brian Cage catches him in a vertical suplex position and just holds him there. That is just wild. And yeah, these are just some fantastic matches. But what was your impression of the match overall, Curly?
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying. It was just a straight impressiveness because, like, Justin landed on the head where it's like, I mean, you don't see this kind of stuff. You have to constantly keep reminding yourself that you're not watching, something that's cut together for film, like a movie or something that they're faking things. They're on a stage and they're in front of people and they're acting live, and you just don't. You have to keep reminding yourself that your disbelief is suspended. I have trouble carrying the cat litter up the stairs, and this guy's catching people in midair, full grown adults, and I'm just like, okay, all right, this is happening.
Yeah, it's just some fantastic wrestling on there. Like I said, Brian the fucking Machine Cage, is somebody that I think we've talked about repeatedly as somebody who's on another level, and especially when he's teamed up with the unbreakable Michael Elgin, making up the unbreakable fucking machines.
No relation to the host of Tech News Today.
No
relation.
Though I was part of me was really hopeful that he was going to be taking over Tech News Today. I still say. My only gripe with a good man, Mike Elgin, he's a professional, he's a good guy, he's a good host. My only gripe with him is that
in charge of Tech News.
You're not unbreakable enough for me.
Yeah.
You
don't have to be diplomatic. It's a pro wrestling show. Cut a promo on him. Who gives a fuck?
But yeah,
I'm trying to make sure Petey knows how to be a good babyface.
So Petey's trying to suggest that we have the Elgin wrestling match to see who gets the title of Tech News Today.
Versus Elgin.
Yes, yeah. Elgin versus Elgin.
Mike, your eyes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
All right, here. Can we have a real quick discussion on indie wrestling, real quick? And this was like, you have so much talent, you have so much athleticism in this match. And I understand that everything's on a shoestring budget in indie wrestling, right? But it's like, if they were to do an Indiegogo just to get 3 Canon, like, new, like, awesome, like, cameras to shoot on, you can just wire them right in. You can switch on Wirecast, right? Like, there's no reason why these things should be locked down with such shitty framing and look like so amateurish, right? Like, there are kids that are doing better than that in their living rooms. Why does indie wrestling look better? PJM, answer me.
Because Justin Robert Young, unfortunately, the pro wrestling business, born of the carnies and conmen, is still very backwards and myopic, and getting the pro wrestling business to progress to the idea of spending money to increase their technical look and feel, it's pretty hard. It's kind of like ripping someone's arm off.
They just need a good tech guy.
But
they don't need their money. Put it on Indiegogo. I mean, PWG couldn't raise $5,000 on Indiegogo to get 3 decent cameras.
They probably should, but
you're closer to Reseda, California than I am, Justin Robert Young. I don't.
I'm offering your services.
But I will say this: there is a lot of progress coming from one particular company and one guy. Beyond wrestling, they are doing some pretty good job. All their recent events have been, at least for a couple of recent events, have been 1080p. A couple, very well edited once they actually finally come out. And really good quality framework for as much as they can, from what I've seen. So there's progress. All of the WWN live stuff, the Gabe Sapolsky the Sapolskyverse has been moving over to HD. So there is progress. But
come on, like, these guys are fucking killing themselves. Like, they're wrestling these matches. They're still taking, you got Kevin Steen taking thumbtack bumps and shit.
I want to see thumbtacks in 1080p in the arm.
There's no reason why you can't do it. These cameras are not all that expensive anymore.
Also, Justin, in 1080p, some things will be seen that shouldn't necessarily be seen with pros.
Oh, don't give me that. Come on. Work around it.
They'll have to step their game up. That's all that'll happen.
Yes. But it's happening. There's progress happening.
Some stuff in the business can't be seen, brother.
Like, some people's
It doesn't stop the WWE. WWE wrestles in HD. You can wrestle. TNA wrestles in HD.
And Matthew of Botchamania has had years and years and years of footage to work with because of it.
Gives a fuck. I mean, listen, we all love it for the fact that you can see the scenes every once in a while. I mean, like our willful ignorance and our suspension of disbelief that makes this the art form that it is. I mean, you don't look at Guardians of the Galaxy and be like, "Hey, why isn't Batista, power bombing everybody? He's a wrestler, not an alien." You know,
Vin Diesel's not really a tree in real life.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he's kind of a... Well, yeah. Okay, so
But
we're going to move on to
talk,
the next...
We need to talk about, PD.
The next
This
match.
is a PWG show. I have to talk about El Generico.
Yes. Well, one quick thing. I do love that Scott Johnson's recent sketch of Dave Bautista's character in Guardians of the Galaxy. He accidentally gave him a GH gut, growth hormone gut, which is hilarious. But yeah, moving on to El Generico.
El Generico, the man who, for all intents and purposes, took the mantle from Daniel Bryan as being the god of indie wrestling in 2009 and onwards. Taking on Rich Swann, one of the more interesting young guys in indie wrestling right now. I must wax poetic about El Generico. Most indie wrestling fans know that he was, for quite some time, arguably the king of the indies, until the day arrived where he retired and had to go back to Mexico and take care of the orphans in his orphanage in Tijuana. But some say, rumor, speculation, that he taught a young man in NXT by the name of Sami Zayn, but that's all hearsay and speculation. But
This is some
El
bullshit that
Generico-
I get down with.
El Generico taking on Rich Swann. Justin
Yeah.
Robert Young, you had a smile on your face when I talked about the generic luchador, El Generico. What did you think of this? And if you've seen any of El Generico or his supposed young pupil, Sami Zayn, what did you have to say overall?
Number one, in an era where there is rightful anger in our history of whitewashing the ethnic superstars of our popular arts, where Elvis Presley can become the hero, the musical hero that none of his blues and rock and roll forefathers who were black were able to do. In a world where Azalea Banks gets criticized by Nicki Minaj for trying to sound black, it is amazing. And it is one of those elements of pro wrestling, which is why it is such a unique art, that somebody can blatantly just have this meta take on being the generic luchador and call himself El Generico, co-opt all of the Spanish-American wrestling history, and be so beloved because it is such a ridiculous concept, and yet the in-ring work rate is so high that everybody loves him. It is in itself a inside joke, a smarky joke for everybody to enjoy. There's a reason why he was the king of the indies before retiring to go take care of those orphans, because it was that connection between the audience that I find this funny enough to actually act it out. You find this funny because it's an inside joke.
See, Justin, I'm not quite following you because El Generico was from Mexico,
Okay.
and he was popular in Montreal and Quebec. And despite the fact that he didn't really speak French very well, or English, or Spanish, for that
really,
matter.
yeah.
It really wasn't
but-
really very fluent.
Again, as it stood for those years, kind of in the post Daniel Bryan era, where we were all kind of looking for who's going to be the next top indie guy, it became El Generico. And
deservedly so. Listen, he's amazing. This match was great. I also really, really enjoyed Rich Swann. Rich Swann was
Rich Swann is wonderful. He's
Swann?
absolutely
Black
wonderful.
Chris Jericho.
He is, yes, he is a young black Chris Jericho, and he is a highlight of the Gabe Sapolsky universe.
Yes.
And indie wrestling fans out there, if you're not aware of which Rich Swann, shame on you. He is an absolute joy.
He is an absolute joy. An absolute joy is being in the audience when he is walking to the ring, singing "All Night Long" by Lionel Richie as he walks to the ring. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing that every indie wrestling fan should enjoy experience.
Truth.
Curly, what was your impression of this match and these guys?
They're the epitome of the greatest characters I've seen on the show. It's fun. I mean, it's really where you start to see the. For me, this is just one big narrative of my introduction into wrestling, and here you get to see like really crafted characters, and I just enjoyed. I enjoyed the show.
Really fun, really fun humor as well. I think that really presenting the humor of Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, which I think is a part of the important thing. Because I remember back when we did our episode on, and much to DJM's chagrin, interspecies wrestling, I did an analogy of wrestling promotions.
California?
I think so.
No,
that's why it's in Canada.
They're in Montreal.
It's in Montreal.
I'm just gonna say, a lot of stuff that has come into indie wrestling from Montreal, fucking weird.
Yeah. But yeah, my analogy was that if I later extrapolated into speech versus, but if Chikara was the morning stream, PWG would be the NSFW show back then, or now more fittingly, Night Attack. I think that's one of the reasons I think it was cool to have Justin come on to look at this promotion, because of that analogy. And then I later extrapolated interspecies wrestling would be the comedy button, but that was a whole other story. What did you guys, and back to the personality, do you guys see that analogy in kind of the personality of Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, especially you, Justin, who's seen both those promotions?
Well, it's funny if you look at when I did the Chikara pay-per-view with you guys, that was a lot more story driven. You had little packages, or at least painstaking by the announcers to bring up why these people were fighting, what was at stake, why they needed to either succeed or what would happen if they would fail. There were a lot of stakes kind of put out there. Whereas PWG seemed more like, hey, listen, let's just have fun, Like, obviously there's an element of the only real storyline we happen to get, aside from the meta element of the retirement match from Joey Ryan, is the Steen, the setup to the Steen match, where it's really just like, hey, heel is an asshole, Steen sets up the stipulation he didn't see coming, and now we're going to have a hardcore match instead of a regular match. But it wasn't to the point that Chikara has the intricate ins and outs of storylines and characters that bend space and time to fight each other and settle their differences in the ring.
And that is the fun of indie wrestling, is that, to use Mike Quackenbush's analogy, is that you will always find 31 flavors of ice cream, and you can enjoy all of them or you can enjoy just one of them. And PWG's flavor is unique to itself, and I think it is one that is absolutely worth trying. I think I can definitely see PD's analogy with Night Attack. I definitely get that, just on the varying scale. I can definitely see that comparison. And again, that's part of why I was saying that if you, Justin, delve into PWG, I'm really curious about what you think about Joey Ryan. I feel like he is such a character that is so made for the PWG audience that I'm really, really curious. I think he might be someone that everyone has their guy. I'm really curious about where that might go. Mm-hmm. But PD, let's move on. Let's get the last two matches out of the way, because we've got a continuation from earlier in the show with the Dojo Bros taking on the Super Smash Bros.
Mm-hmm. A couple of pairs of bros taking each other on in
strong,
a
bro.
fun contest.
Rather strong, bro.
Rather
He's from
strong.
Florida, bro.
Yeah. And again, disparate personalities, fun match, fun athleticism. What did you guys think of this? Pre-main event match.
I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I was running up against my time limit to come on with you guys, so I skipped a lot of this, but I saw the finish, and I very much enjoy it. I mean, like, again, I hate to be, a broken record with this, but it's like, it's incredibly athletic on a level that you have never really that you're not used to if you're not used to watching indie wrestling. This is, I think, fair to say, my amateur estimation, at the top rung of indie wrestling in terms of people putting on these kind of shows, because those crowds are so live, and PWG has a tremendous reputation that outside of Ring of Honor, really it's like Ring of Honor, Chikara, CZW, and PWG are kind of like the 3 or 4 rather, like, big name, quote unquote, like the mid majors basically of the wrestling industry. It was great. It's two teams that have a big personality. Obviously the Super Smash Bros are just kind of ready made for a certain type of audience that crowd is totally comprised of.
Mm-hmm. And Curley, what did you think of the match?
I have more followers on Twitch than Super Smash Bros. Player 1. That's all that matters. That's all that matters to me.
Moving on to the main event of the evening.
Calling you out, Player 1.
Come down to California, fight me in San Diego, Player 1.
My man.
Spelunky off.
Kids Gaming is the best thing going.
Hashtag pop off.
Yes. We're going to have a hardcore, no holds barred Spelunky competition. Let's see who can get the hell run first.
Moving into the main event of the evening, PD Rave, in which we saw Guerrilla Warfare with Mr. Wrestling, Kevin Steen, that's his name for now, taking on the champion, and I think at the time, the guy who pretty much held every title at the time.
Yeah.
Adam Cole.
Kevin Steen, my doppelganger.
Well, Kevin Steen, the champion at the time, and Adam Cole, the challenger who stole the belt and wanted to make himself the champion.
I don't remember, because there was a while where Adam Cole pretty much had every title.
Yeah,
so
It was kind of a blur. At the end, he got this one too. Spoiler alert. At the end, he got this one too.
Oh, don't ruin it for me, guys. I haven't got there yet. I'm on season 1.
Yes. But yeah, they just kind of decided to destroy each other. Well, really, Kevin Steen decided he wanted to destroy Adam Cole, and Adam Cole wanted a belt. And this is what happened. Give us a little context before we ask the guys what the opinion are. Give it a little context, David Majors.
Now, this match, Guerrilla Warfare, is essentially the PWG equivalent of what ROH calls the Fight Without Honor, or what CZW might refer to as a basic everyday match. It is the final showdown of Ultimate Destiny, where both guys know that it's going to be bloody and painful and probably cringeworthy, and this was no different. I can honestly say that anytime PWG does a Guerrilla Warfare match, I often have a very hard time watching it. And as much as I like Kevin Steen and as good as Adam Cole is, this definitely did not disappoint.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think?
Kevin Steen is, and correct me, DJ, trained by Jacques Rougeau, right?
His original training was by Jacques Rougeau. He was kind of the prodigy, the $1 million prospect of Jacques Rougeau back then.
And Curley, to just give you context, another big fat guy who was really athletic. Kevin Steen kind of takes
from
that.
Montreal.
from Montreal. Take that to a whole nother level. Whenever you can see a Potbelly kind of move with the sort of athleticism that he does,
Very impressed.
always incredibly impressive. It's matches like this that you can see why, you would not be shocked to see a year from now, maybe not this WrestleMania, but the WrestleMania after it, a headlining match, for an Intercontinental title or a tag team title with Sami Zayn and Kevin Steen prominently.
They've never tagged together. But they might in NXT. They might in NXT. Who
Listen,
knows?
they might tag for the first time together
In NXT. It might happen.
Might happen. It would be. It's because of this kind of work rate. He's a very unique personality. Like you said, it's always impressive when people can be that athletic, right? It's impressive when they have that kind of a read on the crowd. It's that much more impressive when it is an atypical body type. Kevin Steen has an atypical body type, and he uses it to the best of his advantage. I'm excited to see him get that cup of coffee in NXT. Maybe he's out in 6 months, or they give him, a squirting flower clown gimmick, and he's done, and he'll be back at Pro Wrestling Guerrilla in a year, or maybe he's, a championship contender.
But I will say, I'm of the opinion that, not unlike a certain straight-edge douchebag from Chicago, if you give Kevin Steen something, he might make it work, because he's pretty damn talented. So, yeah,
I wonder, in a post-Punk, post-Daniel Bryant world, it seems as if at least there are elements inside WWE Creative.
Oh, yeah.
Might be Triple H. That are saying, no, these guys get this for a reason. These guys are headliners for a reason. They might not look like the typical WWF. They might not look like John Cena, but they get over just as well, if not bigger, because they have this seasoning with this kind of indie crowd.
There's a reason Sami Zayn has caught on so well in NXT. And it's exactly as you're describing.
Got him hell out for the they're just now giving him a push, but he was basically enhanced. I almost feel
he was Tommy Dreamer. Someone told me that because I was really getting kind of pissed off that he was taking so many losses, but then someone said to me, Sami Zayn is pretty much the Tommy Dreamer of NXT, in that he loses a lot, but everyone still loves him because everyone knows how good he is, and it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And when they put it that way, it was like, okay, all right, fine.
Match with Cesaro at that first NXT pay-per-view is still kind of referred to in hollowed terms as a 5-star. I mean, it really is.
And they've never wrestled before either. They'd never wrestled before that match.
They've never wrestled before.
Just to be able to kind of have that congeal like that and have that chemistry for the first time, it's amazing.
Definitely never in PWG before, ever.
Yeah, of course not. Curley, I'd love to know kind of your reaction to kind of this main event and these guys coming in completely cold to these big time guys. What was your thoughts on this?
Well, so to not have Justin Rodriguez steal my saying, or not my saying, but my exact same experience. I was running up against the clock trying to watch this. Did not expect a 2-hour video in the Dropbox. And so I was trying to power through it, scrub through it, and then I got to this match and I was like, all right, this is the title match. I started to scrub a little bit, and then I just kind of hit a spot and then started just full on. I couldn't scrub anymore. I was like, I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna watch this whole thing, and I was just impressed. I mean, the amount of so one of the things I wanted to ask before I even go into my comments about it is, I mean, really, how much of it is story driven, and how much is improv while they're wrestling together?
Improv. Okay, so it is exactly like a lot of improv shows. A lot of the in betweens are thought up on the fly and just based on experience. And
They
the
have-
big
they have
moments, the
points
big
to
set
hit.
pieces are
Just to
you know
throw
they want
one
to hit
thing
big
in
set
there-
pieces. They have big set pieces that they want to hit, but
Sure.
getting there is done on the fly, and it's just years of
And
experience.
in most cases, the match is usually called by the heel, the bad guy, when they are in the ring.
Mhm.
It is called on the fly by the heel.
So watching it, I was super impressed with Steen's just running of the crowd. I mean, he all the stuff he did outside of the ring. I mean, I think he pushed the other dude's nuts up to the pole.
Yeah,
He different times. You know,
he crotched Adam Cole in the ring post.
Yeah.
Decided, hey, you other corner of the crowd, you didn't get a good look at it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go over there. Look, this is what I did. I picked him up and I threw him against the thing. Wait, you guys didn't get a good look at it. All right,
Well,
hey guys,
because I mean,
picked him up.
from a person who knows performing, like what he's doing there is he's creating fans for fucking life. With the people that are sitting there able to take pictures of it, and he's like, "Oh, let's get a picture in the middle of this thing." Like he is making fans of wrestling and fans of him for life. I mean, they're gonna have that
Also,
shit fucking.
A testament to Adam Cole, who I honestly early on I didn't see it. I did not see it with him. But with his run as Ring of Honor World Champion and his run as PWG World Champion going on later, he has really become a absolutely fantastic wrestling heel. He
He plays the
gets-
shit box quite well.
He plays it exceptionally well. And this was just the beginning of it, really. And he was absolutely fantastic in this. And
In addition to that, there was a lot of blood in this fight. Like,
Yeah, see,
it is-
this was a blade. This was a blade job. I don't feel like that Solomon Crow match was blading in the kind of traditional sense. That seemed like something that was busted open naturally. But this, I think, was definitely you're doing it the hard way.
Mhm.
yeah, I was
Oh,
impressed.
yeah.
I mean, I was like, oh, cool. Like, there's gonna be some fake thumbtacks or whatever. This is whatever, you know. But like, and I was like, oh, those chairs. That seems like a precarious situation for them to really want to throw down upon, and they might get hurt. And then you see.
Oh, no. No.
all right. Well, Justin, that was PWG Mystery Vortex. You living in California, what did you think of PWG? Your home indie. What did you think?
It was so good. I mean, PWG and indie wrestling in general is such a unique flavor of probably our most unique form of live theater. You know, like it is such a unique art form that you can't help but love it when it's at its highest form, and you have guys that are, if they're really born out of their era. If these guys were born 40 years before, they'd be able to make kind of middle-class livings working territories,
Yeah.
And in the modern era, you kind of have very, very little of that, but the passion you get is just so amazing, and it was really, really on display in this event. I don't know if they do Northern California stuff. I would love to see if they do, and otherwise
They really only run out of Reseda. That's
yeah.
They really only
Other
run
than
out
that,
of
I'll just have to make a point to come down there and see a big old fat PWG show. Get myself a pitcher of beer, which seems to be a popular. Me and Curley, I'll meet you in Reseda, baby.
Do it.
Yes.
I'll bring the beer.
Well, you can bring
Curley, as your first introduction into the pro wrestling genre, it not being World Wrestling Entertainment under Vince McMahon, what did you think? What did you get out of this experience in pro wrestling?
I think it's been the narrative of my entire conversation. This whole podcast is I'm terribly impressed. I mean, the people that know me for someone that is will wax nostalgic, or not nostalgically, but wax immensely and to the point of being emotional about loving people having their art forms and whatever it may be, no matter how silly it may be. And I fucking loved every bit of this. I thought it was going to be a lot more silly than I thought, and then what happened was it actually was way sillier than I thought. But at the same time, it was amazing, and it was a thrill, and it was enjoyable, and I want to know more. I want to know more about the people behind the scenes, and I want to know more about the stories that they craft. And I honestly want to thank you guys for allowing me to have this. I would not have gotten down this rabbit hole without a little push from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You rave, my friend.
Yes.
I think we got one more. I think all this says to me is that we got to keep the awesome series going.
Yes, we do.
We gotta keep up the awesome.
Yes.
Of course, Curley, tell our fine folks, the Fanny Pack listeners, where they can find you on the interwebs.
When Player One accepts my challenge in San Diego, that's where you'll find me. No,
You might need to say it in French. You might.
You can find me on Twitch. That's primarily where I work out these days. I do live video game streaming stuff where we get drunk and play video games. Drunk Kids Gaming, Twitch.tv. For now. Give it changes to their whole website.
DKGTV.com. DKGTV.com.
Yeah, you can go to the website. DKGTV.com is primarily where you'll find everything. We do the YouTube stuff. We do the Twitch stuff. I also simulcast to other websites as well, so it's not necessarily there only. But yeah, what you'll get from me is not only just hanging out with me and playing video games. I like to share my experiences with them. It harkens back to my childhood where a lot of my early video game experiences and a lot of my love of what I remember from childhood was sitting around on a couch watching one friend who got to play the new game, or I played the game and everyone else was around watching, and we all experienced it as a unit. And this day and age with technology the way it is allows me to recreate that with 20, 30, 40, 50 people on the internet, and I love it. The community is fantastic. Come out to a show sometime. If you look at the website, you'll see a schedule of when we do streams and what games we're playing. And honestly, it's a blast. It's way more cool than you think it is.
Yes.
Trust me.
Yes. And of course, Justin, let's be honest. What would you like to tell your audience about?
Also, Justin, if there's anything you want to say to the fans of the Ponyville Phillies, perhaps in the vein of a pro wrestling promo, you are more welcome to have that option.
I mean, listen, there's nothing I have to say to the Ponyville Phillies that I don't say every single week in season during the FSL Tonight. You can go ahead and find that at FSLTonight.com. But, listen, they for some reason, people don't understand that I'm a professional that tells the truth on that show. So those lonely losers can go back down to their basements and continue to live their desolate, lonely lifestyles wherein they will never have any kind of happiness throughout their miserable, disgusting, shriveling little existences. So anyway, I mean, that's just something that people should know about FSL Tonight. In all seriousness, let me just say something real quick about Curley. With the Diamond Club, like just the people that I've met through NSFW show and BB Live show and Night Attack and everything that has kind of come out of there has been one thing that has been head and shoulders the most exciting element of that, and it's not the fact that we've been able to kind of interact with people or even for me personally, like I've loved to be able to connect with others because of my comedy. It really is the community and the fact that you guys do this show and so many others. Curley has had such success with Twitch. It's what really makes me the happiest in life, and really is what to me is worthwhile in a way that those guys at PWG go and kill themselves for that crowd pop. What really makes me happiest is you guys doing this kind of stuff, and I just want y'all to know that it always makes me so happy that anybody that I've found through this, that we can all kind of gather together and share a fan base and share support and love. That's what's rad. That's what's best in life.
You're a lovely man,
tear
sir.
up a little. Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. We are, of course, that is just an hour young on Twitter. Of course, DJM. You got anything that you'd like to tell the audience?
Yes, at Just Call Me DJ. I'm on Twitter, as always. The newest thing coming out of Delta Juliet Mike Media is No Hope for Humanity, in which I and the lovely Miss Jackie Hearn talk about terrible people doing terrible things, usually from the state of Florida. And also, you can see my continuing coverage of the International Anime League in conjunction with Dragon Sports Talk Radio and Toonami Sports at animeleaguedes.tv.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we're going to be back with the Fanny Pack Wrestling podcast pretty regularly. We got some plans, some big plans. We're going to keep doing the Awesome series along with some other of our regular kind of reviewing
There's going to be a lot of Daniel Bryan.
Yes, there will be. And a little bit of Sanjay Dutt as well, surprisingly enough. Just out of nowhere. And you're going to see B-Boy again. It's going to be a completely different B-Boy. But yeah, more Fanny Pack Wrestling in various forms. Keep an eye out for that. Check out my other podcasts, Hallyu-Juku, Record Breakers, Rebelli.net for all of them, FannyPackWrestling.com, Fanny Pack WP. Follow me on Twitter, PDRave, iTunes, Stitcher. Follow, share, like. Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
There's gonna be a lot of Daniel Bryan. I'm not kidding. I'm kind of obsessed. A lot of it.
Woo! Brian or Brian Danielson?
Daniel Bryan Danielson. That's what us indie nerds have grown to call him. Daniel Bryan Danielson.